Thereby welcome the third and the last presenter in this panel, Daniel Heller from Charles University Prague. And Daniel received his PhD at the Institute of International Studies, Charles University Prague.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's upcoming.
It's upcoming.
I got some
I'm sorry to give you more titles that you have.
I got a sort of magisterium.
You
As you know, it's Yugoslavia.
Yeah, magisterium. Yes. And from MA in Balkan, Eurasian and Central European Studies, also from the Charles University in Prague. And as I can see from CVs of our presenter, he has various works experience as a teaching assistant at the Institute of International Studies, Charles University, as a collaborator with Czech Council of Foreign Relations, and as a researcher at European Center for Minority Issues, and analyst on Ministry of Defense even in the Czech Republic, and I will not go on. And he's also impressive list of publication on the subject. And the subject is Ethnogenesis of Guarani People and Divine Contemporary Histories of Kosovo. Please, Daniel, the microphone is yours.
Words. I would need 1 second to find the presentation.
Okay, please.
It's managed somewhere in the electronic space.
I understand.
Well, to me it's happening all the time, so as rather a diagnosis, not coincidence.
Cheers.
Must be actually. Really? All right.
The public can help you. That's the we have this. Great. Now we can start.
Super. All right. Well, as you can see, my topic is ethnogenesis of Guarani, so-called deviant contemporary histories of Kosovo. It is a part of a much broader and perhaps too ambitious project of my PhD. The aim of the PhD is to research the influence of, let's call it dramatic, political development and heated interethnic relations between the dominant nations of Kosovo, Albanians and Serbs, and their strategies of national monopoly on the national identity development of local Slavic Islam communities, their status as minorities, their own perception of the recent past of Kosovo and more widely Yugoslavia, and also to the current Kosovo ethnopolitics. The work is supposed to be multidisciplinary, not just because of its trendy these days, but rather the combination of the anthropological fieldwork, oral history, framed into, let's say, broader politics and even international relations. It sort of allows me to present the full picture of Kosovo histories since, let's say, 60s. So I'm focusing mostly on the very contemporary history, late 60s, 70s, 80s, up until nowadays. I work primarily in south of Kosovo, where most of the Muslim Slavs still lives. There are also interesting archives, be it in Prizren or Peć and so on, so I welcome you to work there, even if it's slightly messy, thanks to the war and many other things that happened. Today I will present a micro-study that is focusing on Gorani people, that in a slightly poetical way it means the people of the mountain. They are dwelling in the most southern part of Kosovo and around the borders. It is the municipality of Dragaš or Gora in the Serbian system. You know that the territory is still contested, even in the administrative terms. In the mountains of Šar-planina, Shard or Sharda in Turkish. You can see the orange color. This is the very south of Kosovo, and orange marked. This is the, let's call it, ethnic territory of Gorani, or the center of their life and world. You can see it is overlapping to Albania slightly, and there are two more villages on the Macedonian side. So it is a triple border area since the Balkan Wars, in fact, or back in time double only. The borders are sort of cutting the community into two parts, nowadays three. As we know that the borders and borderlands are constructed as well contested and reconstructed. So there used to be a sort of iron curtain in between Albania and Yugoslavia. That is not true anymore. Well, but still, the movement and notion of living together is very much divided by the borders. Restelica, the very southern village you can see on the map, was my base camp for the research. It used to have about 8,000 inhabitants, so that is really the biggest village or perhaps town in the area. But these days, at least half of the people is not living there currently. They left, and especially during the winter, there is about 3,000 people living there. The place is sort of features of Charshia, with various shops, even a shopping mall, over 20 man-only cafes, 2 mosques, barber, and so on. So it is really a sort of future national Gorani metropolis. Well, it is a metropolis in that sense. As the social environment of Restelica is very interesting. I have never been to such a place, and I traveled a lot in former Yugoslavia, the Balkans in general, and former USSR. When it comes to the conservative, I spent there 2 months in the winter, and I have never had a single chance to talk to a woman in a reproductive age. And I was talking only to grannies and small children. But the world of man and woman is strictly divided in that sense. There is no alcohol consumption. That is extraordinary in the social reality of former Yugoslavia. They sometimes make jokes that they have Sharia. That is, in some cases, true. The issue of language is connected to identity is very interesting. I had a tough time because not only they speak a very old-fashioned, let's call it interdialect between what is Macedonian, Bulgarian, and from the other side, Serbo-Croatian. But since many of the men used to work abroad, they like language switching. So you can hear Italian, French, German, and if you want to push your conversation through, you have to cope with this somehow, linguistically. What is interesting, they don't know Albanian. Almost none of the people of the village. It is really like ethnic, and they don't have much contact with the Albanians living in the north. And if they do, they usually speak the sort of Croatian standard or their own language with the people from nearby surroundings. What is interesting, they call the Albanians not Albanians or Shqiptari, as many other nations around do, but they are using the very old-fashioned term Arnauts, and it tells us a little bit more about the society and the way they think. It is also, to me, a matter of being conservative tradition and their perception of the outside world. This is the metropolis. We still have snow there, surprisingly. So 2 mosques, and this is the main Charshia and the surroundings. There are also houses on the top of the hills. When you come to Rastovica and you try to talk to people about, well, not directly who they are, but even if you listen to conversations, you can hear expressions like Gorani, Goranci, Turci, Poturčenjaci, Muslimani, Pomaci, Torbeši, Bošnjaci, Makedonci, Bulgari, Srbi, Slavicized Albanians, or Yugoslavs. As you can see from this, the ethno-national identity is contested not only from the outside in the dialectical sense of nationalism, but from the very inside of the community, in its very center, so that the biggest settlement. The temporality of the identity development of local and ethno-national identity is roughly like what we know from the other Slavonic Muslim communities from former Yugoslavia and Balkans in general, living in the sort of social and economic periphery, far from the main centers. I used to work in Sanjak. This is sort of similar to me. So they have known that they are not Albanians and Serbs, but the national question was raised only during the second half of the 20th century. However, naturally, they somehow found themselves in a position of what I would call observers, looking down from the mountains at what was going on in the lowlands of Metohija, Kachini, and Kosovo in general. So identity under construction and the struggle for unity in the environment where nationalism is one of the most important intellectual constructions, especially since 1960s up until nowadays. So that the struggle for national unity and the struggle for the territory of Kosovo. If we ask more specifically about the impact of the atmosphere of heated interethnic relations between Kosovo Albanians and Serbs on the ethnogenesis of the Gorani minority community, I can hardly see any real undisputable impact on the nationalist confrontation on Gorani people in the terms of, let's say, the dialectics of nationalism. Much more influential has been, in fact, what was happening in broader Yugoslavia, at least since the 80s. We can observe clearly rising nationalism even in the public space, and the nationalism in the form of particularism among the South Slavs. And this is the very moment most of the Gorani somewhat realized that they have to decide among various bigger national identities, and being simply Gorani in national terms. From the conversation I experienced, since the issue of ethno-national belongings is not settled at all, a personal experience of every single person plays the most important role while people are thinking and expressing their ethno-national affinity. For example, those who spend most of their life working in Belgrade and have strong social and emotional connections there will probably tend to present themselves as Gorani. This is a sort of Serbian expression. Or even nowadays, as Serbs of Muslim religion. It was striking to me to hear it for the first time. More secular people tend to be Gorani or Goranci. People with stronger religious affinity are more likely to call themselves Bošnjaci or even Turks, Turci. In Kosovo, we can talk somewhat about a struggle or battle for interpretation of the past and so the present. Albanian and Serbian nationalist perceptions and international, almost Western production, still an intellectual world, still seems to be tending to reduce modern history of Kosovo into the model of two competitive nationalisms. At the same time, Kosovo has undergone several major political twists. Let's say from the troubled border province under the tight control of the state security, through autonomy run mainly by ethnic Albanians, a decade of direct rule from Belgrade, to international protectorate and independence in 2008. And the key question is, to me, whether Gorani experience is providing any alternative narrative challenging the Serbian, Albanian, and Western discourses on history and historical discourses. Or, in other words, can they provide yet another perception of Kosovo and Yugoslav contemporary history? As seen throughout the lenses of the Gorani witnesses, they were sort of observing and to a certain extent experiencing the nationalist struggle over Kosovo in form of historic events, or rather incidents, that the periods of violence, demonstrations and so on, but in the same time much more putting stress on the continuum of good neighborly relations with the other communities in Kosovo and in Yugoslavia in general. And also acknowledging sort of pressure towards Albanization when it comes to their surnames, censuses and issues like that. Since the late 80s, the way they narrate often changes. Rather than talking about relations in between communities in positive terms, they put emphasis on the privileges for those of Gorani who sort of collaborated with the regime, be it the Serbian or Albanian, in other words, the Republic of Kosovo. And the rest of community is mostly denoted as the second-class citizens, be Restelica part of Serbia or Kosovo. Let's put it simply, the deviant history perhaps can consist in putting more stress on living together during the socialism and being minority in ethnically divided parcel and sort of parallel post-Yugoslav world. That is somehow contradicting the Albanian and Serbian heavily politicized historical narratives about the dominance and oppression during the socialist period, and also the political Western narratives about the present-day democratic and multi-ethnic Kosovo. Besides, Gorani seems to be very interesting when it comes to studying history of the whole Yugoslavia. Many of them, or most of the grown men, they used to go, and they are still going to Pečalba. They are gastarbeiters. They used to go to Yugoslavia mostly, now abroad. There is an interesting story of a friend of mine. He's an owner of Cevapcinica. he left Restelica when he was 15 years old, and went with his brother to some small industrial town in Macedonia. In 1981, when the Albanians were demonstrating all over Yugoslavia for many reasons, his shop was burned. Not by the Albanians, but by Macedonians who perceived him as a Shqiptar, or his family as a Shqiptar. Then he moved to Pristina, and again they opened a shop there. It happened again in 1999, so they had to move back to his native village, because after all, after 1999, Pristina has really become Albanian city, and the biggest national minority are the internationals. I used to live there, and there is, to conclude, among Gorani there is a notion of, let's say, shrunken social space, amplified by the fact that now Restelica seems like the end of the world. If you have a look on the map again, they have no connections to the outside world, only via Prizren. And together with the poverty that was or is effectively forcing at least half of the village abroad, and not surprisingly, there is a very strong notion of Yugo-nostalgia as a sort of struggle for broader social and cultural space, but also in that economic terms. Besides, the nowadays minority status means not only being the second-class citizen in Kosovo or perhaps Serbia, but also the need to make, for most of us, unexpected choices, dealing with two state institutions working on the same territory. In Restelica there are 3 schools under one roof. So the Republic of Kosovo is running Albanian language school. That is a nonsense, because nobody can speak Albanian in the village, especially not the small kids. Then there is the Bošnjak curriculum, introduced again from Pristina, and you can visit Serbian school. I've been recording songs they are singing. It's marvelous. They are really the same. They live in the same neighborhood. They talk the same language and so on. But the kids are taught totally different history, songs, literature, and many other things. So perhaps there's going to be more